You're listening to the Ranch Stewards Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the stewardship and conservation of grasslands, diverse ecological landscapes, and the salt of the earth individuals who dedicate their lives to this endeavor.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Ranch Stewards Podcast. I'm Lauren Pederuto, the new Communications Director with Rancher Stewardship Alliance, and I'm excited to be joining you for today's conversation. In this episode, we're joined by Rancher Bill Webb and RSA Executive Director Angel DeVries to talk about the history and the future of the Webb Ranch. We'll talk about the importance of grazing for healthy landscapes, the role of partnerships in conservation, and innovative programs like the RSA Grassbank Program that help support young producers and keep working land in agriculture. So with that, we hope you enjoyed this conversation and come away with a better understanding of the people, practices, and partnerships shaping the future of ranching.
Montana. We are proud to say it's where we live and where we work. The vibe is different here. We are friendly, caring, hardworking, resilient, and resourceful. No one else covers Montana or cares for Montana more than Stockman Bank. To us, Montana isn't just a place. It's the only place we do business. That's why we are Montana's brand of banking.
Welcome to the Ranch Stewards Podcast. Today we have Bill and Angel. Bill is a rancher from Phillips County, and Angel is the Rancher Stewardship Alliance Executive Director. So thank you both for being here. We're really excited to have you on. So Bill, we would love to have you give us a little introduction about yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and then we'll come from there.
Okay. Well, thanks for your interest in my homestead property and the Webb family heritage. And with that, my name is Bill Webb, and I'm a third-generation rancher from Phillips County, North Phillips County. Lived here all my life. I'm married to a third-generation rancher from South Phillips County, Patty and I, and we have 2 children and 6 grandchildren, and we've been active in the ranching community in Phillips County for most all our lives. I've been in some other businesses at a younger age before I got into totally full-fledged ranching, but today that's basically what I am, along with a cattle buying service that I offer. And also we have a trucking business together with my brother-in-law, Matt. And I guess that kind of sums up what I am in Phillips County today.
Great. And Angel, do you want to just give us a little bit of an intro about yourself as well?
Yeah. So I was, raised in Malta. I went through kindergarten through senior year here in Malta. I actually graduated with Bill's son. Bill's wife was my first grade teacher. So I kind of have some connections to Bill, ironically, growing up in this community. My trade training is I'm an accountant by trade, but I'm married to a 5th-generation rancher. We're on his family operation just east of town. So we do cow-calf operation, stocker operation. We do commercial yearling bulls. We're raising our kids, and we're with his family. And so I kind of landed myself with RSA 6 years ago and just really invested in the future of agriculture.
Amazing. Great. So we're really just here today to, Bill, learn a little bit more about you and your story and learn about the Webb Ranch. We have lots of questions, and it's a pretty amazing property, and there's a lot of amazing things going to happen with that in the future. So what do you feel like makes your ranch unique?
Well, I guess the thing that I feel makes the ranch most unique is its location. It's right along the Canadian border. It's very remote. In fact, it's the county road doesn't even run clear to the property, so it's actually a private road part of the way up there. That makes it most unique. Another thing that's very unique about that property is the prairie potholes, they call them. We call them sloughs. Our family called them sloughs, but those sloughs make it a very unique piece of property in that there's not a lot of that kind of country in Phillips County. It's mostly limited to North Phillips County. So yeah, those are 2 of the properties that make it very unique.
And what was it like for you? What are some memories you have from childhood, going to the ranch and afterwards?
So one thing that sure comes to mind is the winters up there. Even Malta, it's pretty flat up there, and it's cold, and we can get a lot of snow in different years. It can be challenging. So yeah, that's one thing I remember as a child growing up there.
What was the coldest it's ever?
I think my dad said one time they registered 52 below, and that was just the regular temperature, not the wind chill.
You have a very interesting family story history. The ranch stretches back more than 100 years. So could you tell us a little bit about that and the history behind the ranch?
Okay, so my grandfather homesteaded there in 1912, and he ended up marrying his neighbor, which was borders the ranch on the south side. Her name was Ada Weesey, and he actually homesteaded in 1912, but she wasn't born until 1910. So anyway, they obviously got married in later years, and they raised 11 children up there on that property, and he graduated or left the property, turned it over to the next generation in 1962. So he was there 50 years. Mm-hmm. And from there, it went on to one of his sons, and he continued to operate there until he pursued other interests in about the early 1980s. And that left the door open for my dad to take over the property. And my dad actually ran the property clear up till his death in 2019. And then that's at that point I took full-fledged of the reins and started operating it under Webb Livestock, which is what we operate under today.
What do you feel like some of the biggest lessons that your dad or grandfather taught you?
Well, one of the most important lessons that my grandfather taught me is he instilled in me, as he said, always keep your credit good and be able to back your word. Mm-hmm. Have the trust. And I've followed that throughout my life, and I've instilled it in my kids, and hopefully it's tapering down to my grandchildren.
So obviously with the ranch, with that kind of history, there's a lot of traditions, and a lot of things are changing with technology and whatnot. What do you feel like some of the things, your traditions, that whether it's your family or the things that you do on the ranch, have kind of stayed the same? And then what are some things that you've changed to have a more modern operation?
We raise cattle in this country, and we calve them in the spring typically, and we sell the calves in the fall. So that's not changed. That's the way they did it then. That's the way we do it today. Probably the biggest change, of course, is technology. It's made things so much simpler for our generation and the future generations. And the equipment is much more sophisticated. Yeah. So it's just, it makes it a simpler lifestyle than it was back when they started.
Yeah. So RSA has a upcoming ranch tour at the homestead. It was rained out last week, and now it's going to be held on July 13th. And we're going to be heading up there to do a tour of the homestead and to get to know, obviously, a little bit more about your family. And we're going to be looking a lot at grazing and how the operation has moved throughout the years. So one of the talking topics that I'd love to ask you your opinion on is how do you believe that grazing and cattle really benefit the land? And talking to some of our listeners and viewers who really might not have any understanding of that, or maybe are living in a city and maybe have never seen a cow before. If you could give us your thoughts on that and educate them on what that means.
Sure. Well, grazing, if it's done properly, which most ranchers in today's society operate under very conservative measures, grazing enhances the growth of the grasses. It provides better habitat and vegetation for the wildlife. It makes a whole better deal. The water is better, and it creates an environment where they can survive easily. Yeah, wintertime, again, as I say, most people leave a lot of grass in wintertime. Boy, there's plentiful grasses for the wildlife to survive on throughout the winters, unless there are too harsh. But yeah, it's definitely a benefit. If you watch over the years, if you don't graze something, which we've had a lot of CRP lands in this country for 30 years, if you don't use those grasses, pretty soon they start dying out, and they get so coarse, and it creates a negative effect where this grazing comes into play, and it enhances the vegetation for everything, livestock as well as the wildlife.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions that's out there today is how wildlife and ranching might compete with each other. And you just really gave a great example of how they can really work together. So what are specific things that you've seen on your ranch where wildlife and ranching have really coexisted and benefited each other?
Yes, on our ranches, the antelope don't necessarily run with the cattle, but they're not far away. The deer as well. Birds, they land in the ponds that the cows drink out of, the ducks, for example, and they have little ducklings every spring. And so, yeah, they coexist very well together.
Yeah.
Ducks especially are going to be in all of those sloughs or prairie potholes. Like that is their main habitat space,
That's right.
So
Absolutely.
like that's really where they like to be, is in those areas.
Yeah. Well, actually, I feel like this is probably a really good time to, Angel, have you tell us a little bit more about RSA's involvement in the Webb Ranch and in the Grassbank Program, speaking about how wildlife and ranching really go hand in hand, and a little bit more of a background of RSA and our involvement there.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to visit about this, and excited to be working with Bill, because even though this is a project that kind of came on the other side of the purchase, we've worked a lot with Bill in understanding the history of the property in order to make this possible. This really all started about 20 years ago when the Matador created their Grassbank operation. And so that make sure that listeners really understand the term of grassbank, the best way to describe it is shared access grazing. And so it's when a group of ranchers all come together and graze on a property in common at the same time, or maybe in two different herds, like a cow-calf herd and a yearling herd. And so the Matador Grassbank started in the early 2000s, and for 20 years has been a pretty successful model that people in Phillips County have utilized. And that Matador Grassbank is owned by the Nature Conservancy of Montana. And so for a long time, this has been a model that has looked to hopefully replicate in some way. So about 3 years ago, the Nature Conservancy approached RSA and said, would you guys be interested in creating a Grassbank 2.0, or, like a second one? The Nature Conservancy was not interested in owning more property. So they looked to us to say that if we could do the purchase, would you be interested in owning the property if we could gift it to you? And then you as RSA would run it, because you are a rancher-led, locally led organization, and that's the model we want to bring to a next Grassbank. So at the time we said, sure, we would be interested in, taking a stab at this project and seeing if it would go forward. And I think at the time we weren't really sure that we'd be able to make it happen. Fast forward 2-3 years, and we did. So in May of 2025, after looking at several different properties and really trying to identify the right property that would fit this model and fit the mission of RSA, because one of the biggest things that we wanted to make sure is that when a property was selected, that it wasn't taking a ranch operation out of agriculture, right? And so with Bill, it was one of those. He was selling that property, but was not getting out of the industry. And so that was really ideal for RSA and my board in selecting the right property. And so in May of 2025, we as TNC and RSA closed on the property, but we do not own it. RSA does not own it at this time. So TNC owns it. And they closed on the property in May of 2025, but the intent is for TNC to gift the property to RSA for long-term ownership, and for us to create another Grassbank model outside of that. But the trigger point of RSA owning the property will be fundraising the first 3 years of operating expense. So we're in the middle of that, and I'll get into that a little bit more. But the whole mission of this Grassbank model or shared access grazing is for local producers to be able to have access to land that they may have otherwise not had access to. In our area, I think we're seeing land prices increase time and time again, and what that looks like is pricing itself maybe out of agriculture production, because those prices are increasing because of recreational value or maybe some development value. And so RSA's mission is to really try to create land access where maybe young producers wouldn't have had the ability to do so. So we really hope that our program will be able to, our program is going to prioritize young producers as tenants over maybe more established producers. The tenant makeup will probably be like a 2/3, 1/3. So 2/3 of younger producers and 1/3 of mentor producers, because we want a little bit of a mentor component of some folks who are there to like help the new or beginning producers like get their start.
What do you feel has been one of the biggest challenges of the Grassbank program once it's on the ground?
That will be one of the biggest challenges.
That will be, that you kind of foresee.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges will just be working out the kinks, right? I mean, we have been working on the development of this program for the last 18 months to 24 months. And every time we go through steps 1 through 12, we go back to steps 1 through 11, because some decisions that we finally make in step 12, we realize, oh, we got to go back and change some decisions made in step 1 through 11. I have the great privilege of 3 of my board members being Matador Grassbank members. So they have been tenants of a Grassbank. So they have a lot of experience in that, which has been really great. But I think it's still going to be working out the kinks. And there's just a lot of place-based things that we're going to have to learn. Like Bill said, it's all the way up at the Canadian border. So, our office is located here in Malta, but the property is located 50 miles north. So it's there's going to be some kinks with that. It's very remote location. It's harsh winters. We really want to make sure that our tenants' cattle are well taken care of. So we talk about things like, are we purchasing hay? Are we having a hay stockpile up there? What's our grazing season going to be like to make sure that our tenants' cattle leave that property in good body condition, and all of those things, just making sure that we keep good relationships with our tenants, with our neighbors up there. All of those things. I think the biggest challenge will just be continuing to tweak the program to make sure that we're holding a program that's worth being proud of.
Has there ever been a program in this area like this before, even way back when, or is this kind of the first of its kind?
I'd kind of look to Bill. I would say grazing associations would be the next closest thing, other than the Matador Grassbank south of in South Phillips County.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just going back to your point of with land prices being what they are and younger people wanting to get into ranching. I know a lot of people that really want to get into ranching, but there's such a big barrier. So this program is so important for that. And going back to the question, Angel, is what are some of the challenges, but then what do you foresee, and you as well, Bill, that's going to come out of it? What do you see to be your hopes and dreams for this program?
Yeah, I think one is just that access to land when it is increasingly challenging. I think I also foresee the mentorship component, because that's a really big part of what my board wanted to build, is this idea of having a couple mentor producers as well as these beginning producers, because when cattle moves need to take place, everyone shows up, right? So there's this, for lack of a better term, forced time together. And so that gives an ability to learn from one another. And it's also a chance for, your mentor producers to learn from a younger generation. I don't want to just say this is only one-sided, because there's things that older generations can always learn from the younger generations too. When we talk about technology and modernization, I think there's things that we can always learn both ways. But then there's also things that the younger generation could also learn from the historical knowledge and things like that from our older generation, and things just like, hey, I need to go apply for a loan at the bank. Do you got some tips, right? And someone who's done it, 50 times over as a mentor there, would be able to talk them through some of those things. Or, you know, I'm looking for my next lease. What do I need to know? Who should I talk to? Do you have some connections? You know, a new producer isn't going to have a network that someone who's an established producer does, right? And so I think what RSA does so well, and that what we look to do all the time, and because it's a pillar of our mission, is that community piece. And so that mentorship program and that community piece is really what we're hoping is a really big benefit to this program.
Bill, what do you feel that you're most excited about when it comes to this program?
Well, it's a great program. It's I personally like to help young people myself on a personal level, and to see this organization come in and do this on a large scale, it's going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah. Well, great. So I got another question for you, Bill. Just going into that, what is your favorite part of ranching?
Boy, I love it all. I guess, but probably my favorite part is in the spring during calving season, and of course spring, getting through the winters here in northern Montana, and spring hits and the calves are being born and the animals are being born, the ducks are flying over. It's all a wonderful time to be a rancher. To be able to be out in the elements is something that I would not change.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Angel, what do you feel is your favorite part?
I think, the baby calves are always like, you can't miss that. I also think that as a mom with young children, I think my heart always swells when we're out working the animals with our kids. Like, I think it's just like, you can't deny that this is a lifestyle worth living.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I didn't grow up in ranching, and I rode horses a little bit, but I really didn't get into this until about 7 or 8 years ago. One of my biggest passions in life is really spreading awareness and showing people and talking to people about what ranching really is and everything that it encompasses, and why it is so important for our country, our culture. You know, American ranchers are the backbone of our country, in my humble opinion. But we also know that there's a lot of challenges with it as well. And we touched on a few things, but Bill, what do you feel has been the hardest part for you and your family when it comes to ranching as a whole?
Well, probably the most difficult part of ranching is dealing with the winters. Of course, is always a challenge of determining how much feed you need, and if you're short, where you're going to find that feed. Probably the biggest challenge that we have some control over. There's things that come into play that we have no control over, so we just have to navigate that as it comes. Price structure, for example, is something that we have no control over as a rancher. So we struggle, and we figure out a way to survive until the market changes, and it always seems to come around, and it makes up for those bad years.
I was going to echo, me and my husband have talked about this a lot, of like, when we feel, down in the dumps of something, we kind of split it to like, what are the things that we have control over and what are the things that we don't? And weather, of course, is the thing that we always have no control over. There's nothing you can do about it. And so you focus on the things of the ways you can navigate it, and the things that you can do to prepare for it and all of that. And then, of course, the fluctuating market is always a challenge, just focusing on the ways that you can prepare for those sort of things. And what are the things that you can control? And I'm a numbers gal because I'm an accountant by trade. And so I think a lot about like, well, if you can't control the revenue stream, you can control the expenses, right? And so we talk a lot about like business structure and strategy and things like that. So those are some of the challenges that I think sometimes can be really, really unique to the agriculture industry beyond a lot of other industries.
That just kind of made me think of a rancher success stories that RSA is going to be sharing yesterday and then today. Mm-hmm. And, talking about succession planning and what it means for the next generation. So to you, Bill, what has been the most meaningful part of this, seeing your children and your grandchildren be involved in this operation and keep it going?
Sure. Yeah. I get out of bed every morning knowing that I have a son that's there that's going to be able to take ownership something happened to be sooner than expected. We always know that comes, and I guess if I left the world today, why I'm so happy that he's there and his kids are involved, and I also have a daughter that's in Helena that's very interested and been part of our ranching operations as well, even though she's an accountant as well and married to a military guy. And knowing that those kids are there and have an interest and want to be there is a great feeling to have as a parent.
Yeah. What do you hope that they might inherit, or some lessons that you hope they will have to help guide their life?
Sure. Well, I guess like we talked earlier about the honesty and the integrity and keeping your credit rating good are probably the most important aspects of going through life that I can mention. If I instilled that in them, well, I think they'll probably be all right, along with what they're gonna inherit. The ranch and the cattle operation that we have.
I've been saying this for a while now, but just being exposed to ranching and working on different cattle operations and things like that, I feel there are so many lessons you can't learn anywhere else. And Angel, we were just talking this morning about something that happened on your operation, your children got to experience. And I mean, those can't be replicated anywhere else. So it's so important to kind of keep those lessons and keep the younger generation really caring about ranchers and what we're doing on the ground. Just keep it going for the future. Yeah.
Bill, I have a question a little bit more about the property itself. When it comes back to like grazing that property, what are some of the grazing lessons you've learned up there? I know you've done some restoration work. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like you've reseeded some old farm ground and stuff. Can you talk about that restoration work and the grazing?
Sure. In 2015, my dad decided he was going to quit farming. Okay. So I decided that, I'm not going to farm. Yeah. So we seeded that back to grass and made it into a cattle pasture, of course. And that's done very well up there. Mm-hmm. In fact, I was up there the other day and I'm just amazed at how much forage that thing produces. Mm-hmm. Improved grazing, I guess we'll call it. Right. So that's an interesting project that we did that enhanced the property.
So there's no farm ground anymore?
There's no farm ground on the property any longer. No. And as far as the grasses up in that country, it seems like the grasses they grow better than they do in a lot of places. Maybe it's more rainfall up there. Mm-hmm. Maybe it is cooler. I can tell you that throughout even the summer months, it's cooler. It's just a grass growing country up there. And then also those sloughs provide a lot of vegetation. If we get a winter where we have a lot of snow, those sloughs fill up, and there's lots of them on that property. Right. They fill up with water, and it almost creates a irrigated pasture effect up there. I can't remember a year when we could say we overgrazed because of drought or something. It seems like we just always have lots of grass up there.
That's good. Good problem to have, I guess.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And so if I remember correctly, you said your grandfather had 11 children, right?
That's correct.
So all 11 children grew up on that homestead?
Pretty much,
their entire childhood?
They did have to come to school.
Okay.
They had a home in Loring.
Okay.
Where the kids started school. Some of the kids, well, in fact, most all the kids actually had to come to Malta to graduate from high school.
Okay. So then to back up a little bit further, you said it's all grass now, but there was farming. So way back in the history, how much of it was farming and how much of it was grass, like when your grandfather owned it?
Okay, when my grandfather owned it, when I was old enough to remember, which was probably about 5 years old, he farmed about 200 acres. Okay. And of course, when he started, it was all done with horses. Okay. As I remember, when I entered the world, he had some machinery. An actual tractor, which had steel wheels on it. Mm-hmm. And a combine. He had a pull-type combine that was probably a 10-footer, I'm going to say.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, and then as the future generations took over, they broke a little bit more land. When I took possession of it, it had 800 acres of farmland on it.
Okay.
Total.
And what kind of crops were farmed up there?
In the early days, my grandpa always raised feed for his cattle.
Oh, okay.
The next generations, they started growing some wheat for sale purposes.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then slowly it's just all been turned back to pasture land.
Right. It's
Yeah.
all grass, all pasture.
And then what kind of improved water sources have been put up there?
Okay. Well, we've actually added some pipelines, water lines, underground water lines to various different pastures, and the whole place is actually has pipelines to each pasture.
Okay.
So on a year where the water may be limited, why we can always flip a switch or turn a valve, and we have water at every pasture on that property, as well as our other properties are the same way. It's something that I firmly believe is very cost effective, and I'm willing to spend the money to get water everywhere.
Saves a little heartache too. When,
Absolutely.
Yeah, or a little stress when times are dry. So tell me about the prairie potholes. I mean, I know I see them, but do cows water in them very often? Do you try not to let them water in there? What does that look like for hoof traffic down to those?
The cattle will actually go out in those, and they'll graze out in there. They almost want to make you think they're a water buffalo or something, but they leave no imprint.
Sure.
They don't kill out the vegetation. It's never been a problem. I always was concerned about that, seeing all them things out there stomping around, but
And they don't bog down in them.
they don't bog down.
There's enough like vegetation in there that it's pretty like stable soil.
Yes, and the soil is pretty tight up there,
Yeah.
so they don't actually leave much of a print when they go in there.
Yeah, because that would be my first concern, because we've had cows like get into like kind of a low spot and then they bog down, but it's not the same, right? It's not the same soil type, right?
That's right.
Angel, if you wanted to touch back on anything about the program, any final points, I'd love to have you do that now as well.
I think some of the biggest things I wanted to maybe share is just that, we're still tweaking the program. It's not fully built yet. We're still trying to navigate like the best way we can build it to get it started, right? Our hope right now is that we'd be able to launch the program for grazing season 2027. But again, it's all contingent on us raising our first 3 years of operating expenses. So right now, we've received about $390,000 in fundraising towards our $600,000 goal that is specific to the Grassbank. We've also received some funds that have been what we call unrestricted gifts that could go towards the Grassbank. So that $390,000 is about 65% funded towards our $600,000 goal. But when you include some of those unrestricted gifts as well, that puts us a lot closer to $537,000, which is about 90% of our goal. And that's if we include all of our unrestricted gifts. So we would like to not include all of our unrestricted gifts, because those unrestricted gifts can help just like our general operations. So depending on which way you look at it, we're somewhere between 65 and 90% funded of being able to take ownership of the Grassbank. So yeah, we're still pushing. We still have some, like grant applications out there, but we're really pushing to try to be opening the program up by grazing season of 2027 to be able to offer that. We've already got a list of like interested tenants, people who are wanting to be able to graze on the property up there. We have very long work session meetings every month to make sure that we're doing the best we can with this program. And like I said, we're going to do this program, and then at the end of the year, we're probably going to change a lot of things and tweak it again, right? I also wanted to share that there'll be a governing committee for this program specifically, which is unique to anything else that we do at RSA, just because this does involve land ownership. This does involve people, their business being involved in this. So, someone's cow is actually on there. And so this governance committee will consist of 7 members, and that will be 4 RSA board members and 3 community members. So I kind of just wanted to share that because we'll be looking for 3 people in the community to be on that board. I don't believe that the people on the committee will be able to be tenants, just to try to create some conflict of interest separation. But yeah, that was the other thing I kind of wanted to share, is that, we'll also be looking for people to be on that committee to help, with tenant selection, helping develop policies, deal with any sort of grievance issues if there are any, help develop the grazing plan. We also will be looking for a program manager. We'll be hiring for that. They will be someone who develops a grazing plan, manages the tenants, checks on the property up there, and they'll be developing the program as a whole, and actually building it out for further expansion. So as most people know, Dale B. Seth has committed his property to us in the future at his retirement, which is another 38,000 acres, probably 10 plus years from now. And there's an idea that that property will also be in a grass bank type model of some kind. And so that this person that we hire for the program management will also be looking to that property and building out the program even bigger, right? And so, so those are just kind of some final thoughts that I wanted to share about what this program looks like in the future.
Yeah. And for our listeners, they can always visit our website and there'll be information on there, and then we'll obviously be sharing more information as things come along.
So make sure you sign up for our newsletter and follow us on social media and our website. That's where it'll be launched and available.
Yeah, great. So
I guess I just want to say thanks to you, Bill, because you sold this property, but your work hasn't been done with it, because you've answered a ton of our questions, just trying to understand more about the best way we can steward the property once we take ownership of it. You're doing the web tour with us, being able to share more of the history. You're taking time to do that with us. And I just want to say thanks for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it. One closing question that I'd love to ask is, what do you feel gives you the most hope about the future of ranching?
Oh gosh, probably the most hope is that it continues for another 150, 200 years.
There you go. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a very doable deal. Obviously, people got to eat.
Yeah.
So till they figure out some other diet that keeps us going, why I think the ranching business will be around for years and years to come.
Yeah, and I think I would echo that. I think, agriculture is the backbone of our country because we need to eat. We got all the food. And I think I also am inspired by a little bit more recognition about understanding the food that we eat and looking more towards the food we put in our body and thinking more holistically about that. And because of that newfound interest, I think agriculture as an industry has been kind of lifted up as more important today.
Well, Bill, we want to say thank you so much for being here and taking the time to talk with us today. And we're really excited about everything that's happening, and we appreciate your time and you being here. So thanks for being on with us.
Sure thing. Well, thank you, Lauren.
Yeah.
Thank you, Angel.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right.
Montana. We are proud to say it's where we live and where we work. The vibe is different here. We are friendly, caring, hardworking, resilient, and resourceful. No one else covers Montana or cares for Montana more than Stockman Bank. To us, Montana isn't just a place. It's the only place we do business. That's why we are Montana's brand of banking.